Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. My name's Barr. I'm your host for this week's program. Well, today we're going to talk a bit about some of the things going on in your local government, as well as voter registration and kind of all things election, and we're going to do that right when we come back.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. My first guest today is Dave Sanko. Dave is the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors. Did I get that right? Is that all?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, great. We got it. Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
So tell, what's PSATs do? Why do they exist?
Okay, well, the State Association of Township Supervisors, PSATs, is a nonprofit organization that is a member service organization for all the townships in Pennsylvania. We provide education, government advocacy, information, and generally try and provide things to help townships do their jobs better. Everybody in Pennsylvania lives in a county, a school district, and a municipality. That municipality might be a city, might be a township, might be a borough. We represent the townships, and they cover 95% of Pennsylvania's landmass and almost 6 million people.
So how many members do you have?
There are 1,453 townships.
You knew that right off. That's great.
I knew that right off. And I also know that there's only six that are not members.
Really? Okay. Well, but you're working on them.
We are.
But you're working on them.
One of them's coming on board. I met with them 2 days ago.
Oh, good. So Pennsylvania has a lot of municipal governments, as you noted. I think, in fact, we're second or third in the U.S. in terms of numbers of municipal governments. Am I correct in that?
I think third or fourth, yeah.
Third or fourth, okay. Only Illinois?
Illinois is larger, yeah.
That's what I thought. And as you said, we've got cities, boroughs, townships, authorities, school boards, 500 school districts, et cetera. So it gets difficult to navigate through those for a lot of people. Now, your guys are listed by kind of size. You've got different classes of townships. How does that work?
Well, the townships are, before the 60s, townships are left over from Old England, and townships were just townships. And then in the 60s, the city of Philadelphia was making a lot of outreaches and annexing neighboring communities. Mayor Green at the time, it was called the Green Grab, and it was about grabbing green, actually, taking the money, the resources from those communities, the tax base. So in 1968, the Constitutional Convention kind of put a stop to that, said you can't just annex communities without the approval of the voters. The legislature created protected those communities that were largely just contiguous to a city. So you'll find first-class townships around Philadelphia, around Chester, outside of Lancaster, outside of Harrisburg, outside of Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, Scranton, Pittsburgh, Erie. Every place there's a city, that was the protection that the locals could take to avoid being annexed.
Only for first-class townships.
And they became first-class. Yeah, they became first-class townships. Now, after the Constitutional Convention, it was clear that that distinction didn't matter anymore because the protection was there because voters had to approve. Both communities would have to approve any kind of annexation. So there's, almost 1,500 townships of the second class. There are less than 90 townships of the first class, there's also a population density, so if there's more than 300 people per square mile, it's not really driven by population because there are townships of the first class that only have 3,000 or 4,000 people. There are townships of the second class that have 60,000 people.
Yeah, but some of your township members are as large as some of the cities in Pennsylvania, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I think our largest is 60,000. Lower Paxton, actually, here in the mid-state, is larger than the city of Harrisburg.
Yeah, and I know that's not uncommon. And of course, the boroughs and cities have their own representation as well. I assume you guys work with them on various things.
We work with the associations, but we also have members, borough councils and cities and a county who are members, associate members, that take advantage of our training and education in our annual conference.
And of course, your guys have, in many cases, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, particularly when we come back, provide police protection in a lot of cases, provide snow removal from roads, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things, trash collection in a lot of cases that your guys provide and have to be overseen, correct?
Yeah, I think, years ago, being a township official was mostly about taking care of the roads, but that's expanded so much now. It's water, sewer, it's fire, it's EMS protection, it's public safety functions, and infrastructure functions as well.
Good. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more with Dave Sanko. Thanks.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. My guest here today is Dave Sanko, who's Executive Director of the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors. So you mentioned before we broke about roads historically being one of the big ones, and I'm not sure people understand how that whole network works. Of course, we have federal roads like an I-95, et cetera, but then I believe the state owns more roads than all the states in New England. Do I have that correct?
Right. Pennsylvania has the Commonwealth owns or maintains more road miles than all of the New England states, but the townships in Pennsylvania, local governments in Pennsylvania, maintain almost twice as many roads as the states do, as Pennsylvania Commonwealth does. So PennDOT has about 40,000 miles. Local governments have 77,000 miles. Okay,
and of course there's tax dollars. Some of them come from liquid fuel monies from Pennsylvania, et cetera, but a lot of them are the local tax dollars, correct?
It's the choices for maintaining roads are the liquid fuels allocation, which is about for the state $500 million. So PennDOT has 40,000 miles of roads, they get $8 billion. Local governments have 77,000 miles of roads, they get $500 million. So, and the rest of it has to come from local property taxes.
Let me talk for a moment here about what I assume is a kind of a challenge for you. Historically it is, but there's always new pressures on, which is managing growth within the townships. We've got certain areas have become transportation hubs for warehousing. Everybody wants their packages delivered the next day. And a lot of times that falls on the township to manage that. We're talking a lot of discussion now about the new data centers that are out there. How significant is the pressure on your members now in order to adequately manage those demands?
Well, I think the growth and land use planning in Pennsylvania is under state law is a primary function of municipal government. And that's for good reason, because those local decisions need to be made based on things that are happening in a community. Every community is different. One size fits all land use from Harrisburg just kind of wouldn't work. So as we're going through the discussions now with data centers, with energy facilities, local communities make decisions where it best fits in their community. And not everything fits everywhere. But there's a great concern that if that is centralized at the state level, somebody in Harrisburg will just start drawing maps and saying, we're going to put a Walmart here, and there's no adult entertainment in that area. Let's put that over here, and just picking things geographically that just don't fit with the area. So,
without the input of locals.
Without the input of locals, and look, local governments are tasked with maintaining public safety. So I know one of the big discussions, people sometimes, a couple data centers in particular, are upset that one community puts a 3-story height restriction on their building. And they're like, well, other places are 6. Why can't we have 6? Well, that particular community only has a fire truck that can go 3 stories up. And you want to make sure you can provide those public safety. So those local judgments have to, I think, have to be respected. And it's not, it wouldn't be responsible for local governments to approve stuff that they can't properly protect.
Yeah. Now on the show we've been talking obviously a lot about a state budget that still isn't there. You spent a lot of time in state government yourself, so you understand the mechanics of how we go through that. But yet here we are sitting here in fall about to start and still don't have one when it's supposed to be June 30. So what impact is that having on your members right now?
So on the municipal governments, it's not a terrible amount of impact because, frankly, the state doesn't give municipal government any money other than liquid fuels money. That allocation will come out in March. So if there's not a state budget by March, then roads and bridges are going to be affected for the maintenance schedule next year. The only funding affected at this point would be if there are any grants that they're working on, or the counties have some immediate problems, and school districts have immediate problems. They're used to having scheduled payments. Counties some are in the process of borrowing to get there. School districts, are collectively they have about $8 billion in reserves. So if everything were equal, they'd be fine for probably 6 months. But it's not evenly distributed. So some will have to borrow, some will use the reserves.
Got about 30 seconds left, and real quick, I want to talk to you very quickly about an issue that's been kicking around for a few years. A lot of your members have their own police departments. Some don't rely on state police. There have been proposals to change that, to put taxes. Do you guys have a position on that?
Yeah, I think, look, Pennsylvania is tasked with, Pennsylvania has the oldest state police department in the country. Every single Pennsylvanian pays local taxes or pays taxes, income tax for state police. Some communities are completely satisfied with that level of protection and coverage. Others that have crime problems or higher population densities may want more. They'll put on a local or regional police department.
So it's their decision.
It's a local decision. If they put on locals, they'll have to pay for it. Otherwise, everybody pays for state
Dave,
police.
thanks for being on with us. Hope to have you on
Thank you.
again. We're going to come right back after these messages.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, visit crossstate.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Our next guest is Chris Nicholas. Chris is the owner, principal, what do you call yourself?
All those things. Head
All
honcho.
those things. Eagle Consulting. And you can tell us a little bit about what Eagle does first.
I'm a Republican political consultant and have been since before I got out of college, and Eagle is my consulting firm, and I also have a content creation division called PA Political Digest, where I do newsletters and podcasts.
All right, good. So, interesting news recently about Pennsylvania's voter registration. Historically, we've been a very strong Democrat state, purple in terms of voting in many cases the last few years, but pretty big margins for Democrats in terms of voter registration. That has changed. What are those numbers now?
I remind people that we call it in politics a pendulum because it swings both ways. So in 2004, I managed Arlen Specter's reelection campaign that year, and there were about 500,000 more Democrats than Republicans. And that had been normal for a while. Then during the beginnings of the Obama administrations, that ballooned the Democratic advantage up to about 1 million or so, okay? And then since then it's becoming back down the other way. And now
what is it now?
Well, now it's Democrat plus 26,000.
26,000.
So to go from Democrat plus 1 million to Democrat plus 26,000 in a state this big, 26,000 is essentially tied. Essentially tied. So we're going to talk about retention races for judges in a minute. 10 years ago, those 3 Supreme Court justices, when they ran, there were almost 1 million more Democrats than Republicans. Now we're essentially tied. Now, registration does not totally equate to voting behavior. You still have Republicans that vote the other way and Democrats that vote the other way. But it's the best indicator of where the state's headed.
Yeah, and of course, last presidential, President Trump won the state. But is there anything else that's causing this pretty dramatic shift?
Well, I refer to it as greater non-urban southwestern Pennsylvania. So basically all the counties out there, not Allegheny, but all the counties around it, the Indianas, the Butlers, the Beavers, the Greens, the Fayettes, those places, you've seen just huge changes. They've gone basically in 10 or 15 years from being pro-life, pro-gun conservative Democrats to being pro-life, pro-gun conservative Republicans, and that's because they have not liked in their mind where the National Democratic Party has
So
gone.
they perceive that the party at the national level has left them.
Likewise, you have people in the southeastern part of the state, suburban Philadelphia, Republicans who believe the party's become too conservative, too far right, and they have left. But that is a smaller subset than the southwestern PA people. So when you net it out, the GOP is gaining an advantage. Plus, in the Trump times, just like in Obama, successful presidents who changed the country's political architecture because they bring new people to vote. Okay, so you put all that together, and it's the Republicans on the upswing. But the key thing for folks to remember is that more and more people are now registering in Pennsylvania independent, which basically means neither Republican nor Democrat.
What is that number now of independents?
It's about 17.5%. So if you look at by voter registration by percentage, which is what I do, the state right now is 42% Republican,
Okay.
42.5% Democrat,
Okay.
and the balance 17.5% independents.
Okay, great. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the judicial retention election and the governor's election a bit, even though it's next year. We'll do that right after we return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania American Water. We keep life flowing across the Keystone State.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're here with Chris Nicholas. Chris is the owner / principal, whatever he chooses, of Eagle Consulting. And we were talking about voter registration and judicial retention. This is considered an off year in Pennsylvania politics. Election, it's municipal, but one of the big things that's getting a lot of attention is when Pennsylvania elects judges, they're then at the appellate level, they're then up for retention, not a vote, just do you want to keep this person 10 years later? We have 3 of them coming up here this year, correct?
Correct. Even in Pennsylvania politics, retention races are kind of an asterisk. When we elect our county and state judges, they get a 10-year term. So if you make a mistake, you have to wait 10 years to get another bite at the apple. So back in 2015, by a confluence of circumstances, 3 of the state's 7 Supreme Court justice slots were open. Democrats won all 3 of them. And it's now 10 years later, so we get another bite at the apple. And those 3 justices stand for what's called retention. So it doesn't have their political party next to them. It just says, shall so-and-so be retained for another term on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court? And if you vote yes, you want them to stay. If you vote no, don't. In modern history, there's only been 1 Supreme Court justice back in 2007 that lost their retention. There's usually
Because of the pay raise. That was
a big legislative pay raise.
Yeah.
The legislature gave it back. The judiciary kept it.
Right.
Most retention races are just a nothing burger. But this year, all 3 of those Democrat Supreme Court justices actually have campaign committees, are raising money, filming TV ads. Then you have all sorts of outside groups on the Democratic side and the Republican side. People are now seeing ads about it. I'd be surprised if there were not ads inside this program because in retention races, you want to talk to politically engaged voters, and those are the type of people that watch newsmakers.
Yeah. So your best guess, do any of them lose?
I think that we're either going to have all 3 of them earn retention or all 3 of them not. I would be very surprised if, 1 or 2 and get it and 1 or 2 don't. Because the mood of the state is either going to be, let's throw the bums out, or we're okay with what we're getting.
All right. So the other big news recently was, as suspected, State Treasurer Stacey Garrity has announced that she is indeed running next year in the Republican primary to take on Josh Shapiro, current governor Josh Shapiro, for his 2nd term. How worried should Shapiro be?
Well, I think he needs to worry. The 2022 Republican nominee for governor was terrible, and that race turned out to be nothing for Josh Shapiro. He outspent the Republican nominee $70 million to $7 million and waltzed right in. Stacey Garrity is currently a state office holder. She's the state treasurer. By the time this show airs on Sunday, she will have already received their early endorsement of the Pennsylvania Republican Party. So they are, getting their ducks in a row early. She has won election twice statewide. Last year, she earned more votes than anybody but Donald Trump.
And she beat the record that Josh Shapiro previously held, right?
Yeah, Trump got like 700 and some more votes than her, but a lot fewer people voted in the treasurer's race than in the race for president. So she is a proven statewide vote getter. The other important thing for her is she's used to going around the state. It's a big state, Gene, as you know. 6 TV markets, 10 regions. So she's not a newcomer to this county or that county. She's been there. That said, any incumbent is the favored person. But 4 years ago, the Republican Governors Association, which only exists to help Republican governor candidates, didn't help our nominee here. That next year will not be the case. I think the party nationally and state is going to be totally supportive of Garrity, and I think she will give Governor Shapiro a strong run for his money.
Now, the individual who ran against Governor Shapiro in his first attempt is still potentially in the race, State Senator Doug Mastriano. He's indicated that he's still thinking about that run. Do the Republicans avoid an internal civil war on this one?
He's jumping up and down saying, hey, don't forget about me. But what people remember is he got 41% of the vote and pretty much embarrassed himself. 2022 was not a good year for Republicans, but that pendulum I told you back, it swung the other way in 24, and Republicans won all 5 statewide races. So 26 is what's called a midterm election, midterm of a presidential. That is usually better for the party out of power, which is the Democrats. But here in Pennsylvania, we have a Democratic governor. So how does that balance out?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's one of the things I want to talk to you a little bit about here really quick, because we're coming down to the end of the show. As you noted, theoretically, this would not be a good year for Pennsylvania's congressional delegation. And Trump has been down. I think the crime issue has pushed him back up based on the polls I've seen. Is this bad news for Pennsylvania's congressional delegation at this point going into next year?
Well, we have 3 of the top seats in the country, the 10th district here in central PA, the 7th district in the Lehigh Valley, and the 8th district up in northeast PA. They're going to be hot races regardless of what's going on for governor, because all 3 of those races combined won by around 10,000 votes last time. So Democrats see blood in the water. Republicans are like, we're not going to give up these seats, the 7th and the 8th that we just got. So it's going to be a big conflagration.
Okay, so it will be a very interesting year. We'll see what happens there, as well as the State House and State Senate. And
politics is always interesting.
It's always interesting.
And if you're
always
bored, wait 6 months, it changes.
That's true. Chris, thanks for being on with us. I
Thank you.
greatly appreciate it. Thanks for being with us on Pennsylvania Newsmakers. I look forward to seeing you next week.